First thing that we're going to do is go over to Keryn for a little bit, who is going to talk to us and let us know about the happy side of life.
Yay, the happy side of life. Hello, kids. My name is Keryn Glassman, and today I'm here to talk to you about death and dying.
Whee!
Yay! Some of you may remember me from about a year and a half or 2 years ago. I was here on the show. It was one of my first shows I was ever on. I am currently a practicing gerontological social worker. That means that I am working in a nursing home involved in the study of aging. I love my job. It's a very, very rewarding job, good place to work, good people to work with. You know, the elderly are some very, very good people with some amazing life stories.
Yeah.
But as we tend to grow old, we face a lot of issues of mortality. We face issues of death and the dying process and how to, deal with our loved ones and how to bring closure to our life and, bring meaning to our life. Hopefully we should deal with that throughout our entire life process, but it really comes up in our face when we grow old and we start to reach the end of our lives. This is a really, really hard thing particularly for an atheist to face, because a lot of the traditions and cultures and just ways that people have learned to cope with death and dying are from a religious perspective. We think, we're going on to a better place. We have to prepare ourselves for the next world. We have to find our strength and faith in God. We have to, prepare our, memorial service, our funerals, based on the fact that after we die, we have to send our souls on to heaven, and we have to say our last regards after we die to the person that's dead and stuff like that. Atheists don't practice any of that. Atheists believe that when you die, that's it. You just kind of stop living. Your body decomposes and your mind shuts down, and you just kind of, dissolve into the earth, and that's it. I mean, it sounds depressing, and I think a lot of non-believers have trouble grasping that concept. But it's not as depressing as it sounds, because, and I have a bumper sticker on my car that people are very familiar with that says, "I believe in life before death."
Yeah.
When an atheist looks at life, an atheist says, I have a finite amount of time on this earth. I'm going to die. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I can't do anything to stop it, and I'm not going to get another chance after I die. This is all I have. So the ways that I can bring meaning and purpose to my life before I die is to focus on my life, is to focus on the people around me, the things that are important to me. As we get older, and we start to deal with the end of life process, this becomes really important. And there's probably most people out there are familiar with hospice these days, but there's a program called hospice, and hospice is really, really, it has a lot of religion involved in it, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, hospice is really when you know that you're going to die, they help you find meaning and find ways to bring that sense of purpose and that closure to your life, where they can bring your family close to you, they can bring, comfort to your last days and stuff like that. Losing my momentum. Let's see. Another thing that's very important that atheists have a little bit trouble dealing with is what happens after somebody you love has died. Okay. When somebody you love has died, what a religious person will do is they'll have a funeral. This funeral, they will all stand up and say good things about the person that they loved. They will say their last goodbyes, and then they'll, send the person's soul up to God or whatever. In atheism, a lot of atheists are like, well, you know what? If I had anything to say to this person, I needed to say it before they died. And now it's too late. And the person is dead, so they're not going to hear me. There is no God, so they're not going to hear me. And a lot of atheists end up dealing with death by kind of shoving it aside and ignoring it. Okay, it's too late. I missed my chance. Now they're gone. Let's move on. And that's really hard for people to deal with. They don't. So more often than not, what I've seen is that people who are atheistic don't have funerals. They don't have memorial services, and they don't really know what to do. after someone has died. And I think it's really important to reinforce that one of the most important functions of a memorial service is not saying your last goodbyes to the person who has died, but getting together with other people who are mourning the loss of this person and having their company, having their consolence, getting together and remembering good things about this person's life. And also the funeral process of having an open casket and, watching this person go into the ground, is very important in coming to grips with the reality of the fact that this person hasn't moved away, hasn't, just kind of gone off to another place, but has actually died. And through coming to the reality of that, you can, move forward in the healing process. I mean, when my grandpa died, this is kind of how it worked. I hadn't seen him for about 5 years. I found out that he was going to die, and then I didn't hear anything else until after he had been cremated and buried, and there was no funeral. I didn't hear anything about the plans, and that was it. And since I hadn't seen him in 5 years anyway, it was really hard for me to kind of accept the fact that he was really dead, rather than I haven't seen him in 5 years anyway, and I'm not seeing him now, so for all I know, he could still be living in New York, doing his own thing, And it was just hard to kind of accept that and move on. Yeah. But it's really, really important to be able to have those practices. And, atheists don't have a lot of rituals and customs of how we go about doing this. There is actually a very good book that we have in our ACA library that is called Funerals Without God. It's just kind of a little manual. It's a little black book, and it talks about, it gives some examples of different poems, some different readings. It talks about how you can pick someone to lead the funeral, some things you can talk about during it, and just gives a little bit of a background of why it's important to have that process. It's a really, really good book.
Okay. I guess getting a bit more general in terms of not specifically atheist death and dying, but what are some things just in general that you should be dealing with beforehand in terms of getting a will together? I mean, I know it's not atheist specific, obviously, but still something.
Well, it is atheist specific. I mean, it's not completely atheist specific. It's important for everybody. But a lot of times, I mean, one way that it can be atheist specific is a lot of times, someone who is an atheist, if they don't come from an atheist family, a lot of times they've been shunned by their family, they've had friction with their family, and even though their family knows that they never believed in God, one thing that can come up is after they die, the family still kind of tries to push that religion on them, still has a funeral based on religion, based on, okay, we know that this person never believed in God, but we're still going to pray and send his soul to heaven. I believe recently in the news there was a story about someone who was a soldier who had been killed in Iraq.
Yes, I can't remember the exact name, but I think it was along the lines of Tillman, something like that.
And his brother got really mad at the memorial service that they gave and started saying things along the lines of, this person hasn't gone on to a better life, he's just dead, and we're treating him like a big hero because he was a football player, but we're not acknowledging the fact that this person was a warrior, that this person, wasn't religious and, still fought for whatever cause, this war is supporting.
Anyway, there were a lot of God bless yous at that.
A lot of God bless yous.
At that funeral.
And, okay, so one way that's really important to deal with this, there's a lot of paperwork that you can take care of before you die. And as young as you are, as young as I am, it's really important to try and get this paperwork down, or at least to have some really important conversations with your family. One of these is just having a will. Having a will that says, when I die, this is the kind of funeral I want to have. This is the kind of things that, I want taken care of. I don't want people to bury me in a plot of ground that's just going to be sacred for the rest of forever and is going to go to waste because nobody can plant anything there, nobody can build anything there. It's just going to be this plot of ground where I am sitting there dead, Like for me, I would like to be cremated. I'd like to have my ashes scattered somewhere beautiful where my ashes will nourish the earth, nourish the plants, the plants will grow.
You won't be taking up space after
Right.
die.
I won't be taking up space. You know, I will sort of be recycled. Like, I'll feed the plants will feed the animals will have little babies. It's sort of like, that is how I will get my immortality after I die, is I will live on through the parts of the earth that grow from me, you know?
Okay.
I was talking to a non-atheist recently, and she was like, well, so you do believe in an afterlife? I'm like, no, I mean, I will be dead. I won't be there to acknowledge that that's happening. But
there's no consciousness involved.
There's
like,
no consciousness.
I'm now a bird.
Right, yay, I'm now a bird. But it would be nice before I die to know that is all going to come of me, you know? I'm going to be recycled. And so you can have a will ahead of time. You can start it now when it's not an imminent thing. You know, a lot of people think writing a will is sort of bad luck. You know, but atheists don't believe in bad luck, so it shouldn't be a problem. But you write, you know, what kind of funeral service you want to have, what kind of music you want played, what kinds of people you want involved in it, what kinds of burial service you want to have. Okay. Have these conversations with your siblings, your friends, your parents. You know, I asked both of my parents, what do you want to happen to you after you die? I know neither of them are planning on dying anytime soon. You know, not within the next couple of decades at least. But I would like to know, on the off chance that something unexpected happens, I'd like to be able to grant their wishes. Yeah. There's other kinds of paperwork, like if you have strong feelings about how you want your end-of-life process to go, you should have a power of attorney. And a power of attorney is a legal document that says if you ever become incapable of making your own decisions, like if you slip into a coma, if you get severe Alzheimer's, you know, you're incapable of making your own decisions, you can appoint someone now, ahead of time, that you trust that can make decisions on your behalf based on what you would have wanted. And you can have something called a living will that you can sort of write down ahead of time what these things are. For example, if it's important to you that you don't want your life to be sustained inevitably, well, you don't want to be hooked up to machines, you don't want, you know, CPR or feeding tubes or respiratory machines, you know, if that stuff is things you don't want, you know, there's a lot of religious beliefs that people have that it's really important to them that, you know, God's will be granted. Yeah, either you try as hard as you can to sustain life at all costs, even if, you know, you're not even there anymore, really. You're like a vegetable, you know. But there's other religious beliefs where it says, I don't want anything done to me at all, because if God wants me to die, I'll die, or whatever, you know. And these are very important things for you to have written down on paper well ahead of time, so that people will know when it comes up, and you don't wait till it's too late.
So I guess what's the difference? Living will would be enforced by a power of attorney when you're still alive. Yeah. Be it in a coma or something like that. Whereas a will only kicks in after you're actually dead.
That's right.
Okay, all right.
That's right.
Okay. All right, what about, you had mentioned the burial service and such. Alternatives to that. I mean, we obviously have burial.
There's a lot of alternatives. It depends on, one thing that you can do, if you like this idea, if you like your family to be able to go, you know, visit your burial plot, you can be put into a coffin, you can be buried. In my opinion, you know, that's kind of a waste of land space. My grandfather was cremated, and his ashes were scattered on top of the ski hill in Lake Tahoe because that was his favorite place. And so if we ever want to visit the memory of my grandfather, we can go skiing in Lake Tahoe. Yay! You know? You could also, so you could be cremated. Okay. You could be buried. I personally am an organ donor. I would like to think that they can take whatever useful organs they can from me and use those to help the lives of other people. Okay. And then cremate the rest of me and scatter it somewhere beautiful. You could also donate your body to science. Okay. You know, donate your whole body. That probably means there won't necessarily be anything left to bury. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not very familiar with that process.
And I think what they essentially do with that is they kind of ship you off to a university or a lab or something like that. And
yeah, my roommate just finished a cadaver class at UNM.
Exactly, yes. That's one thing. You could be taken apart by college students.
Yay!
And I believe, as kind of a middle ground between, you were saying get cremated and have your ashes spread around, or getting a burial plot, I believe what you can do in Japan, and I believe this is pretty common in Japan, is you actually get cremated, you're put in an urn, and in the mausoleum or something like that, they'll have like a wall, essentially, which is these little cabinets.
It's kind of it's the same as being buried, only it's just a smaller plot.
Except it's a plot this big.
It's a plot this big instead of a plot, you know. Exactly,
and so they can have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people in this small area, basically, and land use is just a big issue over there. So that's kind of a middle ground, perhaps between the two.
If you believe in the powers of science, you could have your body cryogenically frozen on the idea that they might ever bring you back.
There's a couple of the people in the group who are signing up for that to happen, or at least looking into it. And it seems like a relatively smart thing to do if you can afford it. I mean, the chances of us bringing back someone right now, well, right now we don't have the technology, it ain't going to happen. But in 50 years, being able to bring back people who are currently frozen, we don't know if that's going to be able to happen. But if you bury me or cremate me, I'm not coming back under any circumstances. But if I'm frozen, there's a slight chance. Don't know how big it is, but there's some chance. And so the fact that, I could, essentially die and then get, wake up in 150 years or something like that, or 50 years, and continue on in life, that's kind of exciting.
I think it's kind of freaky myself. I plan on living the best of my life until I've kind of used it up and then dying. I'm all for the Harold and Maude thing. Just kind of get what you can out of it. And
done.
And then just be done. Yeah. I think it's less morbid.
Well, perhaps when I'm 60, I will agree with you, but as it stands right now, there's still a lot of stuff.
Of course, I plan on being 120. But I plan on living every single day of my life as though I might not be 120.
Of course. I as it stands right now, I have a lot more life to live.
And a big part of that, of course, and this answers the moral question that a lot of religious people don't understand about atheists is, I know I'm going to die someday. And you know what kind of immortality I want? I want to live on through my children. I want to live on through the fact that everybody I touch, everybody whose lives I touch, love me, remember me. I want to be remembered fondly for generations and generations. I mean, famous people in history, Rosa Parks, Bertrand Russell, Henry David Thoreau, Aristotle, they are immortal. They died, but they stayed immortal forever. Jesus Christ. I mean, 2,000 years later, everybody on the planet remembers who he is. He doesn't have to come back and walk the earth for people to remember that person was alive and that person touched a lot of people's lives and made a big difference in the world. That is why I am a moral being. That is why I live a good life. I respect other people, and I try and be very careful about, doing things right. I don't go around and murder people, I mean, you can be like Hitler and you can be remembered in history forever and ever and have your immortality that way because you were like one of the most feared and hated people in history, but that's just not the way I want to go about doing it,
There are ways to be remembered, good ways and bad ways, but ways. Another thing that we didn't really touch on all that much is, I guess, comforting others. And it's kind of a four-part thing. Before someone has died, as in, they're about to die, how can you comfort someone who is atheist or religious before they die? And then, let's say, family members, atheist and non-atheist, after they die. I can't, with any honesty, walk up to someone and say, well, they're in a better place now.
Right.
So.
And that's really hard. When something difficult has happened to me and somebody walks up to me and says, they're in a better place, or God has a plan. If anything, that makes me angry. I hate hearing that when I'm in a moment of weakness. It makes me mad. It makes me more sure of my atheism, if anything. It's very important to be there for the people you love. In fact, one of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books says, there's a quote, it's sort of a little mini poem, if you found out you were going to die tomorrow, who would you call, what would you say, and why are you waiting? It's a really
interesting way of putting it,
it's a really important thing to remember. It's very important to, obviously it's very important to be there for the people who are mourning, and a lot of people don't know how to react to people who are mourning. Their first attempt is to cheer them up, Their second attempt is to, give them their space. You have to find out what's important to the person what they would want, what they need. But, you know, a lot of times it's just good to be there to listen to them. Just give them a shoulder to cry on. I don't know. And, you know, working in a nursing home, I don't broadcast it that I'm an atheist. And there's a lot of people that walk up to me on a daily basis and they say things like, God bless you, and God loves you. And, you know, when I was going into this profession, they did a lot of training in college that you should take your personal beliefs and you should put them aside. You know, don't let them get in the way of how you treat other people. And for me, you know, it's really not as big of a deal as they made it out to be. If somebody walks up to me and says, God bless you, I say, oh, thank you, God bless you too. Because I know that, if anything, their intent was out of love. You know, their intent was out of respect, you know. They don't know that I don't believe in God. Yeah. And knowing that might not help them, but, you know, obviously it's meaningful to them. What they just said to me was meaningful to them. So the best thing I can do is turn it around and give it back to them.
Yeah. And God bless you. And just take it in the spirit of what they meant was a good thing. You don't need to get into a big theological discussion about it. Just,
well, thank you very much. God loves you too.
Yeah.
You know, if that helps you feel better about where you are in the world today, you know.
Yeah.
And good for you. But if you don't, I mean, it can be really scary for an atheist to be facing end of life because they don't have a myth about what comes next, about what it's going to be like. They don't have any experience with what it's going to be like, and so, you know, they, you know, the way you can be there for them, you know, to comfort them is just to help them come to grips with the fact that they're coming to the end of their life. And then, of course, after somebody dies, you were talking about comforting people after they die.
After, yes, like the family members and such, assuming the family is religious or not religious. Is there anything that you can really do, assuming they're religious? You can't share in that specifically. So, I mean, is there anything really that can be done other than just being there, essentially, listening?
I think being there says a lot.
Hello.
Yes, hello?
Hello.
I think we have a caller on the line. I don't think it's intentional, but...
Okay, we're getting a couple of hellos over the speaker. Sorry about that.
Okay. Technical difficulties. Anyway.
Welcome to live television.
Yay. So,
and with that... Okay. Okay. Well, we're going to try and sort out technical difficulties. We're working on it. In terms of... And I assume that same line of thought would carry over, assuming you're trying to comfort someone who is religious before they die. If they just ask for comfort, it's mostly just...
Well, you know, if they are religious, it's almost easier, because you know what makes them feel better. You know that hearing things like they're in a better place, or you know, they're watching over you, or they can hear you, you know. I mean, even things like, I had a friend whose father died, and... it died in a very, very bad way. Okay. I tried, you know, she was really in a time of crisis after he died, and I took every single approach I was learning. I mean, you know, she was my practicum during that semester that I was in school. I used every approach I learned on her. And at one point, it just occurred to me that, you know, I'm not religious, but to some extent, she's spiritual. And therefore, I can use that approach to comfort her. I can say, listen, you know, you believe that your dad's spirit is there. You know, she had dreams about him. She had a lot of dreams about him. I said, why don't you try the next time you have a dream about him, try explaining to him how you feel. Try explaining to him how betrayed you feel, and how hurt, and how sad, and how much you miss him, and just try and, you know, bring some closure to it through your dreams, because she believed that in her dreams he was coming to her, his spirit was coming to her, and talking to her. You know, she believed that it wasn't just a dream, just some chemical process in your memory. Yeah. She believed that it was actually, you know, him trying to communicate with her. And you can use that, you know, even if that's not something I believe in. Even if I don't believe that her dad's spirit is actually coming to her, if I know that that's what she believes, then whether or not it's her dad's spirit, just going through that process might help her bring closure for herself.
Okay.
You know? It's harder with an atheist because you don't really know what we want to hear, you know? You don't want to hear, oh, he's in a better place. Sometimes it helps to say things like, if the person, you know, was terminally ill or chronically ill before they died, it can help to say, well, you know, they're out of pain now.
No more stress, no more
They
pain.
have no more stress. They had a good life. Really, to focus on the fact that this person was loved, this person had a good life, this person brought a lot of good things to the world, and, you know, served their purpose, you know, and then it ended in a timely manner or whatever, you know.
Okay.
And just dwell on the fact that it was good and now it's over, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Because even if an atheist doesn't believe that they're going on to a better place, an atheist can believe that they're not in pain anymore, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, my great-grandmother died when she was 103.
Wow.
And she was independent until she was about 95. Okay. And then she lived in a nursing home for like the last 3 years of her life, and you could just see how tired she was. You could see that she wanted to die just because everything hurt. Her eyes hurt, her ears hurt, her mouth hurt, everything hurt all the time. And she had severe Alzheimer's and she couldn't say very much, but she could say, you know, I'm just so tired, I want to go home, you know. And it was like, you know, you could tell that death is not always the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes death is a good end to things. Everything comes to an end. You just have to learn that that's not always a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a sense of relief for a lot of people.
I mean, it's not a bad thing that things end. I mean, I don't think I would want to live forever if I had the choice. Yeah. I think that I want to get as much as I can out of my life now. Okay. And then I want to quit while I'm ahead.
Yeah, and that's definitely one thing that we kind of share in a sense of, since there is no idea that I'm going to have an afterlife. There is no heaven, there is no reincarnation or anything like that, and short of cryogenics, which we'll skip for right now, the fact that this is the only life that I have means that you should get off your butt and do something about it, enjoy it, and, you know, grab it and use it for all it's worth, because you're not going to get another chance. So enjoy it while you have it.
And, you know, an important part of that is just making sure that the dying person, whoever they are, is comfortable, you know? And that's another thing that hospice brings, is a lot, and this is a big ethical debate, but a lot of people are against it, but, you know, people think that physician-assisted suicide is bad. But I think it's been pretty much a proven fact that someone who's in chronic pain, once they start to take a morphine drip, their body will kind of start to shut down, and it'll sort of, that process will slow down, and morphine drips kind of will end your life, you know, slowly but comfortably. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're in a lot of pain and you're going to die anyway, you might as well do whatever you can to keep that person comfortable, you know, for as long as they can, for as long as it's needed. Because, you know, what's the point of being in a lot of pain for your last
prolonging
days?
Suffering when there's no hope that you're going to come out of it. So, okay.